Hello, and welcome to a brand new YouTube channel called Great Outdoors Garage. This is my very first video, so it'll probably be a little clunky, but hopefully you'll all enjoy it. One of the other things I wanted to mention in this video is lately I've been having a little bit of trouble with my eyesight, and so I know my welds in this video look absolutely hideous, just terribly bad. Normally I like to think I weld better than that, and indeed I probably do. But the welds you're going to see in this video are just going to be really hideous, and hopefully we can improve on that in the future. Enjoy. So today we're working on the 1946 Ford 2N tractor. And what happened is our air intake got knocked off. This tube here was originally this tube, and as you can see it's folded up on this end, and it broke off like this from being hit by trees. So trying to make a better air intake. This is just junk tubing. That can go away. And so what I did is I re-welded the top on to this tube, which is an old piece of exhaust tube, funnily enough, off of this tractor. And then I welded it to this base you can see down here. The problem is, originally, what somebody had done is just drilled a hole here for this to fit up through, and this actually came apart. It was so mangled that I didn't notice that that was able to come apart until I welded it together and realized, well, I have a hole this big that I'm trying to fix something this big through, and the base down there, I don't know if you can see it in the video, it's not any smaller. In fact, it's even a little bit more bulky. Now we notice rednecks at work here. They drilled the hole in completely the wrong place. Originally the hole was up and over here and wouldn't even really allow the tube to be where it needed to be. So I enlarged the hole, and I realized the best way to do this was just to go ahead. I don't condone this kind of butchering, but I just went ahead and cut this out so that what I can do whenever I need to remove this is take the whole piece up and out. The problem is now we've got a gaping hole, and as much as it probably really doesn't matter, I really don't like that. That's just ghastly, and it's made this kind of flimsy here. It moves now. So what I want to do is put some strength back into it. I also want to put some strength into this tube so that it's not so easily sheared off by branches. And, so that it also doesn't break the whole mounting of the whole air cleaner assembly down here. So we made this. This is actually made out of an old computer tower housing, or part of an old computer tower housing. This will slide up here like this and bolt on. And you can see the 4 bolt holes that line up, contoured to fit the hood of the tractor and everything. And what I'm going to do is weld this up solid around here. And I'll weld this piece back in here. That fell off. But anyway, I'll weld this piece back in underneath it. And when it's bolted on there, it'll look pretty much like it's supposed to be there. Main concern is, once I bolt that on with this kind of contouring down like this, when I pull this loose, does this have enough room to come out and still come off the tractor? So that's what we're going to find out next. So I'll do some welding and then we'll see what we can see. Hopefully this will work out. Okay, so I'm actually pretty pleased with the way this came out. It took way too long. I've been working on this about 2 days now. I need to do some finish welding, and I need to smooth up some of my welding. Now, this is not the best welding I've ever done, but this is actually a very kind of a difficult position to weld in, even though it doesn't seem like it. But everything's functional now. Little access door opens. You can unbolt these 4 bolts here, unloosen the clamp down there, which maybe I can get around and we can see the little clamp hiding in there. Yeah, see, there's the little clamp there. Ow, that's still hot from welding. But anyways, it's something at least. And sucker's sturdy now. Well, maybe not as sturdy as I thought it was. No, it's great. Everything's good. So clean up, do some more welds, and then paint. Okay, so more work on the tractor. Still working on getting this air filter assembly attached. Now I got the rest of the air filter assembly out to paint right now, so it's drying. And you may notice there's a whole bunch more holes here. Now why are these holes here? Well, I needed to be able to screw this air filter on without using a bolt and a nut. Yes, I could have used a bolt and a nut, but I'm the kind of person, when I can take something loose with one wrench, as opposed to taking it loose with two. I'm going to make it where I can take it loose with one, because it's all big hassle to reach down in here. As you can see, this is an awkward shape, and reaching in here from the back side is not so easy, especially because normally there'd be a battery right here and some other components that I've removed. And so it gets very, very cramped and hard to reach up into here, as you can see, with a wrench, because they either have to reach all the way up this way to get in there, and then the other way would be to reach down like this to get there. And if the battery's in there and everything, you're reaching past the battery. And what happens is invariably you drop the nut on the ground or inside the tractor somewhere, and you have to find a freaking nut, and it's a super pain. So how do we solve that problem? Well, normally what we would do is we'd just weld a nut on the back side, just take one of these little guys here, grind that little shiny coating off of it, and then I'd just take the welder and zap it right on the back side of that hole, thread it through, no problem. The problem is this is sheet metal, and it's relatively thick, but a lot of times if you do that on sheet metal, it'll actually rip the whole nut and some of the sheet metal with it right out, and then you're back where you started from. So you want to brace it up a little bit. Here's the solution. What you do is you take like an eighth inch piece of steel, or something similar, and you thread through it, and then you thread a nut onto a bolt on the other side, and then you weld that nut on, which makes it weld on nice and straight. But the problem is I still need to weld these pieces to the tractor, and just the same as getting a nut down here and welding underneath here, it's going to be just as awkward, if not worse, now to weld this whole tab under here, because there's a big lip in the way, like you see here, this lip that's reflected on this side, so that'd be in the way where you couldn't get the welder in there. And even these further down ones, I was looking at these and trying to weld through these. I'd either be trying to look through this hole, or I'd be crawling up underneath and trying to peek up through there and weld to there with a big old welding helmet on and in the way. It's just not a viable solution. So what's another choice? Well, that's where we come into these extra holes that I've added. What we're going to do is we'll line that hole up there where it'll thread, and then these two holes I'm going to weld through. It's what's called a rosette weld. I guess because it kind of looks like a rose, I'm going to go out on a limb and say my welds are not going to look like roses today. They won't be that nice. But what they will do is secure these pieces, and really it just holds them in place while this bolt is being bolted or unbolted. The rest of the time it's really not all that necessary for that to be welded in. But it does another thing too. Now instead of having to rip out just one little nut, I have to rip out that whole section to actually pull this loose and destroy it. Similarly up front, because I know these are going to get pulled on a lot more than the ones at the back, because that stack's going to be tended to hit this way, so it's going to be being pulled on up here and pushed on back here a lot of times. So I made these pieces that will weld up into there, and you line up the hole and you weld in 4 spots. That shouldn't go anywhere for a very long time. Now the other thing is I'm going to grind down these welds, because that piece is going to go over top of these. And then the other thing is a couple of these may be kind of exposed in front of that piece. I really don't want it to be seen that I've done what I've done here. This is one of those projects where you kind of hide your work to make it look professional. So that's our next step. Weld all these in, and that should bolt and unbolt over and over and over again with no problems whatsoever. Okay, a little bit of a gear change today. We've got the air cleaner assembly basically done and finished. It's been painted and everything, and it's just sitting around waiting to be installed. But sometimes I have to modify things out of sheer rage, and this is one of those times. This battery hold down situation that we have here, this is one of the most annoying creations ever known to man. I should be able to pull a battery out of this tractor in about 2 minutes. It takes about 10 minutes because of this dumb thing. And we see these 2 screws going down, and they've got little nice little wing nuts here where you can loosen it up. That's fine and good. But there's a problem. Multiple problems, actually. First off, most batteries nowadays have a convenient lift strap on them, unless you buy one of the really dirt cheap batteries, in which case they don't. But most have a lift strap on it. Well, if you look at this, I'm trying to get it out of this little hole, if I'm taking this hold down out, and the lift strap is right in the way because you see this brace running across here. The other problem is this screw here stud or a little leg or whatever you want to call it. See how it goes all the way down there. And if I come down here, we'll see our next problem. These come down, and they're supposed to hook in these little holes here, but this rod, sorry, let me get the camera in the right place. This rod here, okay, this is your throttle control rod. And this actually scrapes against it, so it binds against your throttle control. And then trying to get it in that hole past this throttle control, getting that hook to go in there is almost impossible. There's just not enough room. I have managed to do it a couple of times, but it's just not worth the fight. Oh, by the way, this is where the air filter assembly bolts on. So then, once you even get this thing loose, which takes 10 minutes because these studs are threaded way too long, and I've thought about cutting them off, but screw this whole assembly because, see, now I've got it loose, and I can't even get the sucker out. This side's easier if I can get it to start coming loose and not binding, because it's trying to bind against the little stupid rubber washer here. So if I loosen that up, and yeah, I know I'm doing this one-handed, but believe me, it's just as awkward two-handed. Trying to peek down in here so if I can see if I can get it out of that little hook down there. You can just barely see it on camera. Okay, got it out of the hook, right? Now we think the battery should come right out. But this other side's still stuck down here. Wait, I got it loose. Okay, it's loose now. Now, look, now I'm trying to get this awkward sucker out of here. Binding up everywhere. It's junk. I'm going to show you all a solution to that and mounting the battery the proper way as opposed to this crap. Okay, how to modify your battery tray when it sucks. You make one of these things. I'm really not making a full battery tray. I'm just making a new hold down. So this battery tray is a bit old and flimsy, and was a lot more sturdy when it came out of the factory because giant rust hole here, a bunch of rust holes over here. And that's going to happen with a battery tray. The battery always expels a little bit of battery acid and such onto the tray, and it always rusts. But we can make a much better hold down situation here. Even though this battery tray is rusty, it's still pretty structurally integral. I have done a couple of things to it to make it less structural. One of the things, like you notice here, they drilled a hole and then they bent this piece down. Now the reason why they drilled a hole there is so that it wouldn't continue and crack on up that way, which I really appreciate the Ford engineers doing that. Normally that's not the kind of thing a Ford engineer will do for you. But on the other side here, I had to cut that out. So this is actually flopping loose in the wind now, which I don't like, but I have a solution for that. The next thing I did, and you know, these holes here, when you look, like, why did I slash this all out like that and slash this here? Well, I did that because this is just a thin piece of sheet metal, which is fine and good for a battery tray, but it needs gussied up a little bit. And that's where this piece comes in that I've welded on the bottom side. That'll add a ton of strength into this battery tray and also the battery mount. Because I've got this bolt hole over here, I don't know if you can see it there. On the other side, what happens, and we'll just set this, go ahead and set that right down in there the way it goes again. That's actually a bolt hole, and that is a bolt hole for our battery hold down. And so what we do is we put the battery in, this end hooks underneath the battery, and then this end bolts down like that, and then your battery is held between here and here. So once we weld that all up, it'll be nice and stout. Now my solution for this being loose, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bolt this whole assembly into the tractor. I wanted to weld it completely on the bench, but that's not going to happen. And I'm going to do plug welding again. I'm going to drill a couple of holes here and here where I can weld through to this piece while this is all bolted in. And then if I tack weld this piece in a couple more places to the battery tray, it should secure everything into the proper shape. Then what I can do is I can take it off and I can weld all the way around this, full weld it, make it super duper strong, put it back in, and I won't have to fight with pulling the battery in and out anymore. Okay, welded it up. We had some warping issues, which was no big deal. And we did a test mount and it works perfectly. I need a longer screw to go in there. So that right down there is where the battery bolts on now. But need a longer screw for that. Need to do some work on making it all prettier. You can see where it, kind of see where it hooks down there. kind of see where it's welded on here, and got the battery right where I want it and everything. So now it's just a matter of taking this thing back out, clean it up, make it all nice and pretty, and give it a coat of paint. Okay, next video about this. So here was the big thing that happened. As you may remember from the other videos, the intake tube got broken off. And as you can see, I don't know if you can see that too well on camera, but just from about 10 minutes of brush hogging and trying to keep it clear from these low-laying limbs, I've already scratched it up pretty good. That's par for the course. This tractor is not ever going to be pretty. It's not a show tractor, and it's never going to be. If we look really close, yes, the entire air filter assembly is in there, a little bit crooked. It leans a little bit forward. If I cared, I'd give a crap. I don't. That's going to work perfectly. It's going to be great the way it is. One of my favorite mechanics, Lucky Costa, has a saying, paint it black and put it back, which is exactly what we did with this entire air filter assembly. It used to be white and ugly, and now it's black and it looks really great in there. So I'm really pleased with that. If we go around to the other side, we can see my battery hold down modification, which is right here. You see it's got the later model style hold down that a lot of General Motors vehicles used, and I'm sure other vehicles use this as well. But you just got one bolt that holds your battery down, and that big stupid brackety thing I don't have to deal with at all anymore. I went ahead and painted my access door knob black like it's supposed to be. And then there we can see the battery with no annoying strap over top of it, securely mounted in there, no problem. We're doing good. So I also came in and modified this hood latch assembly. They had some little piece of scrap metal they got from somewhere. It was super thin, wasn't the right shape to properly latch the hood, so I made this to where it actually will latch the hood correctly now. Now, as far as problems on this tractor, there's a ton beyond that. I really need to redo a lot of things with the electrical system right now. I've got the electric fan cobbled together where it'll run. These tractors used to have a mechanical fan on it. I modified this one to have an electric fan. I still need to do some work on that. So yeah, needs a lot more work, but works for now.